get started.
Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. All opinions expressed by me or guests of the podcast are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Life Moves Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment decisions. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Financial Purpose Podcast. This is episode 99. 99 in the house. If you remember 1999, high five. Or the Prince song, or, like everything in 1999 was like 99, that was my attempt at impersonating Snoop Dogg. 99. Whatever. Episode 99. I'm your host, Dale Schaefer. And this episode, we've got 99 problems, but a plan ain't one. So that is what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about this because I often say, almost on a daily basis, like, can I just have one day where something isn't going off the rails? And the answer is no, because there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be things that are not functioning the way that we want them to. There's always going to be little tiny things that are just kind of pulling at the strings, and, it's just grabbing the phrase and all of these things. So there's all the headaches, all the issues. But when there's a plan in place, when you have something to fall back on, when you have a guiding principle to steer the ship, even though the wave might take it a little bit off course, you can get back on course. That's what I want to talk about. So I'm going to go through just some of the problems that we run into in life and in business and with our money. And then we'll kind of just riff on those problems and some of the ways that, in my experience, personally, as a business owner and in business prior to that. And then, of course, with some of the clients that I work with, some of the ways that we've worked through these problems. So I'm going to start right away with money mechanics. And these are going to be cash flow headaches, debt issues, surprise bills of any kind, which are never fun, and insurance gaps. And so for cash flow headaches, this is going to be like where it seems like there's just never enough money at just the right time. And sometimes that's true, like in a true balance in the bank account. And sometimes it's psychological because we're afraid to let money go out because we don't know what's going to happen next month. So we need to keep a cash reserve. Yes, that's why we need to keep a cash reserve. But the cash reserve has to be different than the balance in your operating account. And this is where this gets a little tricky. In episodes in the past, I've talked about the Profit First method by Michael Michalowicz, which walks through all the ways that you can sort your money and have it actually work in the assigned areas it's supposed to work, which means money comes out of your operating account and goes to very specific places and gets set aside. That helps overcome cash flow issues. Now, the difference here is that if there is no money coming in and it's only money going out, you are absolutely having true cash flow issues. And that can certainly lead to debt issues, which is another problem, both in your personal life and in your business life. And I find that if the personal life has a heavy debt load, you're going to start pulling cash from the business from the business to try to satisfy that, and vice versa. If the business debt load is heavy, then you're going to be looking for personal assets to pull from, to put into the business to try to make that work. And all of it, of course, gets, just taken way off course when there's something surprise that happens. And sometimes it's a tax bill. Sometimes it's your insurance premium is due and it wasn't planned, or you hadn't planned it, or it wasn't on the calendar, or something breaks and it has to be replaced or repaired, or there's an accident of some sort. You can think of all the ways that there's a surprise bill that comes into play, and it's never fun at all, because you can, again, this kind of like plays the cash flow. You can think everything's moving along just fine. Bam, something unexpected happens, and that's where you need your cash reserve. So in business, other places where this can show up, sorry, my little cord there is giving me some grief. Okay, other place where this can show up is in your growth, how to scale the business, when to scale the business, when to hire the next person, how much to pay them, How do you keep them? How do you retain good people? How do you make sure that your best people or people that you think are your best people don't just walk out the door on a Tuesday morning or something like that? So how do you balance that risk? How do you continue to expand? How do you help yourself jump out there? And uh, for a lot of people, especially business owners and entrepreneurs, the only way that we know how to do that is to just do it and figure it out along the way. Now, figuring it out along the way brings its own problems because sometimes that's a punt where we're going to figure it out later. We're just going to start taking action now, figure it out later, fake it till we make it or something like that. And that works for a period of time. And sometimes it actually slows our growth because we jumped out, we're running, and then we look back and realize that we don't have the football, but we're running down the field like we do, or we dropped it, or somebody's trying to give it to us or something like that. So we're running out, we're running fast, the details are behind us, they have to catch up, and then that slows our growth, or it causes unexpected expenses, or it causes people to leave. It causes those kinds of issues. So some of that comes with those growth challenges, and it is really deciding between what point does it make sense to start running and to chase the growth versus to build a stability, a totally solid base, and then jump out once everything's put together. There's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect plan. There's never going to be the right amount of money. There's never going to be just the absolute perfect opportunity, but things can align and they can feel that way and you can go grab them. And so when that happens, it only happens when you're able to understand that it's time to grow and you have a plan for how that growth is going to happen and you're able to handle the headaches that come along. Sometimes, though, what we forget is that every business has a person inside of it and multiple people inside of it and a person leading it. And so you can have blind spots as a person. And so some of those blind spots can be your leadership style. Some of them can be the way, whether or not you're coachable to the leader you work for, or you're coachable as the leader of the business, or you've hired the right people or the wrong people. Sometimes you can have blind spots in the way that you're running your financial life, both for the business and for the personal side. And so for the personal side, we talked about the money mechanics, right? The cash flow headaches. And sometimes, like a really loud noise out there. And so sometimes what happens is we start those blind spots based on our own personal things. So we might think, okay, I need to pull money out of the business or I need to keep money in the business, but at some point I need to start saving for myself. So we have this blind spot about retirement or what that looks like, or saving for our future selves. Do we have enough money? Will we have enough money? Do we have a plan for that? Have we talked to anybody about that? Will the business be able to fund it? Will the business be able to be sold to fund the retirement? Do we have enough money to be able to help our employees set up retirement? Have we thought about ways to do that? And so you can get into all these areas where there's blind spots, where there's some problems that come into play. And sometimes that's liquidity. Sometimes that's personal concentration in certain assets. Sometimes that's just not making a plan. And a lot of times where that happens is, especially in business, we get into the weeds of running the day-to-day business and handling the next thing, next problem, next sale, next bill, whatever it is. We're in the weeds. It can be hard to pull out of the weeds and think strategically about these things. And so all these problems start to kind of fester underneath us, and we're solving them. And again, it's because we haven't been able to pull out and see the bigger picture. So the way that we stay stuck in all of these problems, I mean, there's all sorts of things. There's procrastination, there's chasing trends or shiny objects, there's bad decisions, there's indecision, there's fear of missing out, there's all sorts of things with our documents, which I've talked about in prior episodes, with succession planning and estate planning, and who's going to take over if a key person leaves or if something happens to you, and all of those things. Those are all high level strategic, but we're in the weeds and it's hard to plan for those. And so every issue kind of becomes its own little fire drill, and we test and break our processes by the way we handle each of those. And we're just reacting. There's no overarching strategy. It's funny, overarching came up in a meeting I was in over the weekend, and it was like someone in the meeting was like, wait a minute, is that even a word? Overarching, is that a word? Is that a thing? And so, it's like, is that a Scrabble word or is that a real word? But it's a real word, and it applies when we're thinking about something that's over. So like the whole big picture, we've got to think about those things, or we can be overwhelmed by the number of problems, or like I was saying at the start of the episode, the thought, it's like, can I just get one day where I don't have to deal with anything crazy and I can just get work done and I can just focus on the main thing. And we can't. And so sometimes those problems compound themselves, and then we don't know where to start. We don't know how to clear up the first one. We don't know how to prioritize them because there's too many things. And so that's where the I'll figure it out later comes in, and we'll deal with that another time, or I'm just going to push this aside, or I'm going to try to put this problem off or put this customer off for another day, or I'm going to wait on this phone call until I have more information, right? All these delays start coming into play, the figure it out later things. So how we get around that, having a plan prioritizes what matters most. It puts the things in the right order. It gives clarity and turns all of these 99 problems, or even if they're just 2 problems, it turns them into ways that you can set up a handful of focused steps. And sometimes that's just organizing your day. Sometimes that's a factor of time blocking. Sometimes it literally is going, what are the 8 things that are nagging me, or nagging the business, or nagging my business partners, or nagging my spouse, or nagging at my financial life, or nagging at my retirement planning, or nagging at the tax planning, whatever. What are those things? Write them down and give them a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5 priority, and just start with the things that are most important. Sometimes it's tempting to start with the things that will be the easiest and take the less time, and that may be okay. But the things that are easiest and take the less time are probably the level 4 and level 5 priorities. They're just not as important as the things that you need to spend the most time on, and arguably your best time. And a couple of episodes ago, I talked about tools that you can use to figure out when the best time of day is for you to work on certain things. So there are periods of the day where your brain can do high analytical work and do it well and stay focused. There are periods of the day where it cannot. I know my time frame. My brain can do great analytical work between about 5 a.m. and about 11 a.m. After that, it don't want to do that no more. And so 5 to 11, that's the sweet spot where I can get a lot of work done. I can do planning. I can deal with numbers. I can think big picture. I can think micro and macro. I can do it all together. After about 11:30, my brain switches into ideas. I can create. I can think about things. I might do some work with creative writing at that point. I might have an idea for social media post at that point. But it just doesn't, after that point, it doesn't want to do a bunch of task-oriented things, right? It just wants to be like kind of this freewheeling thing. And then after about 3:30 in the afternoon, it just, I'm spent. And so I might want to just talk to people at that point, or not, right? It just depends on the day. So you have to know when it's your best time to work on those things. Prioritize the problems. Start step by step solution, chipping away at it, solve it, right? There's a lot of books on this. There's the Eat That Frog is a great book. The how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? All of these things, right? Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect, just little decisions done consistently compound into better results or worse results, depending on the decisions. So all of that, once you start to get that in place and you have a rhythm and you have the process and you're in your sweet spot and you're grooving, that's when you can actually get some confidence around what you're doing. It's going to take some of the guesswork and some of the second guesswork out of it. and you're going to be in a stride, and you're going to be able to start really focusing and knocking some things down and getting some wins on the board. That's when business starts to feel good, and that's when your career starts to feel good and life starts to feel good. And it's the same thing with your financial plan. If we have the steps in place, if we know where you want to go, and we set the steps up, and we just start chipping away at each of those steps, over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you start to see progress. You're going to start to feel confident that you're headed in the right direction. And so when you see the connections in the problems and the solutions, sometimes what you find out is that if you solve this thing right here, it actually takes away this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem, because the realization of how to solve this one knocks all of those out of the way. Or it resolves all of these, or it deprioritizes these other things because this thing became the main thing and these did not. And so you start to see those connections. Sometimes it's as simple as like, okay, if I pay this bill this way and I bring this person in to help me solve this part of why we're doing this, incurring this cost or doing this service or whatever, then you may find out that your frustration with this service may actually provide you with a better answer for how to have that. Maybe it's a piece of technology. Maybe it's a consulting agreement. Maybe it's something of that nature. And so if that was confusing, let me try again. So as an example, think of your technology stack. And this is a little bit self-serving. I probably, Josh over behind the panel, his ears probably just peaked up because this is his groove. But think about all the tools that you work with in your business and think about how they cooperate with each other. And most likely, you're probably thinking about how they don't cooperate with each other. So I have multiple tools that do not talk to one another, but have various stages of client information in them and do different things for different parts of the financial plan. What I learned is that there are, with the frustration of, I wish this piece did this. Okay, no, I wish this piece then did this. Maybe I spend a half an hour or an hour doing research. I found a better tool that actually did more of what I wanted. And what ended up happening with this particular tool, so this is the tool I'm talking about is called Riser, and it's my financial planning for the business. And I was using a different tool before that, and it did a lot of flashy things, but it didn't do the things that I wanted to. And when I came on board with Riser, it did most of what I wanted. It checked a lot of the boxes. But what I learned was that in their development stack, this, and this other thing that I really wish the tool would do was already in the works, and it just relaunched, and it has all of the components that I wanted. It looks more like a financial plan for a business rather than just a report card. And you can do some estate planning and some succession planning and things like that in there. So sometimes the frustration with, you know what, let me think about this problem, actually solves the problem and gives you more than what you were looking for. And so that's really what I mean by that. So if you start to see the connections, figure out how to tie things together, you probably end up with a better result. And what that does, whether it's that example or any example that you're coming up with, is it puts you in a position where the more that you deal with a problem and you figure out a way to resolve the problem or put a process in place to keep that problem in check, it starts to create efficiencies for you. And it starts to get to a point where you're not putting out as many fires because you put things in place to kind of handle all of these problems as they come up. And again, I mean, these are things we all deal with every day. Cash coming in and out, debt issues, surprise bills, gaps in our insurance coverage that we didn't realize we had until there's an issue, scaling, hiring, firing, growth, expansion, buy the building, lease the building, buy the business, sell the business, all of these things, balance the risk, readiness for retirement, our liquidity, our personal planning, our personal tax planning, over concentration in equity, thinking about the stock market, how are we invested, real estate taxes, succession planning, estate planning, generational transfers. What are our kids doing? Are the kids going to school? Are we taking care of our parents? Right? So many things, they just hit. And at some point, you're at the end of the day, you're like, I either didn't have enough coffee today, or I need another vice to kind of numb some of this because the brain is overactive. And I need to figure out what to do here. And so having the plan in place puts some of that stuff at bay, because even if those fires are still coming in, you know that you're still on the right track and you can deal with those things along the way. So key takeaway here is you don't need to solve all 99 problems at once. You just need to prioritize them. Again, even if you're one of the lucky few who doesn't have 99 problems, you have 3. That's fantastic. Prioritize them anyway, because 3 problems can manifest into more problems, and they have baby problems. And then next thing you know, you have a whole litter on your hands. And so problems don't disappear. You can't procrastinate them. You can't push them off. You can't wave a magic wand at them. But they don't have to run your life. They don't have to run your day. They don't have to run your business. It's the tail. It's like the tail wagging the dog, right? You don't want that to be the case, because people see it, especially in the workplace. Your employees, if you're a business owner, the people who work for you are, and I should say it this way, the people who are helping you build your business, because that's really what they're doing when they show up to work every day and they clock in and they sit at their desk, or they go to their machine, or they do whatever they're going to do. They get in their truck, they go somewhere, they do a service, whatever it is. Yes, they're providing a paycheck for their family, but they are helping you build your business by doing their job well. If you are the scattered person and all of these problems are wagging you in your day, they're going to see that, and they're going to start looking for other jobs, because they're going to think that the business is on its way out. They're going to talk about you. There's going to be jokes about you in the break room, right? Whatever. You're going to be an ineffective leader. So you've got to figure this out, and make sure that you're not just punting and trying to make things disappear. Put things in place to solve these issues, right? And then finally, I think what's important to bring this back to financial planning is that financial planning is about transforming problems into opportunities. And so we take questions about money. We take problems around money, and we come up with a way to move forward, to have an opportunity to take something that isn't working as well, or that seems scattered, align it, put it together, figure out what's most important to you and why, and then use that thing to serve what's most important to you and why, and do that all together. That's financial planning. It works because we're doing the work behind it. We're pulling all of the little pieces together and putting them in the proper order. It's kind of like I saw a graphic a few years ago, and this was, now it's AI, but then it was Google, right? So it was like, can Google be your financial advisor? And what it did is it said, here's all the pieces. Google, here's all the pieces. And the financial advisor said, here's how they fit. And it was a perfectly aligned. They took all the pieces, put them together, made a shape, right? Everything that was misshapen fit together nicely, whatever. And now it's AI. Can AI be your advisor? I actually read an article about this last week. And last week I had a long CE class, and this topic was one of the sessions. Can AI do financial planning? What are the compliance issues and potential legal and ethical issues around that? I think AI can serve that kind of role, sort of. Very much the same, where it can give you a lot of the pieces. It can give you some direction, but it's not a person. And AI doesn't know you. It can't assess your risk tolerance correctly. It doesn't know the names of your children unless you tell it. And then you're giving a lot of information for the language learning model, which may not be ideal. It doesn't know what you're working toward. It doesn't know what you said in the last meeting. It doesn't know what you're telling yourself in the quiet moments that we all have when we're thinking about our life and our business and our relationships and how to move forward. And so it can give you a lot of pieces the same way, but a financial plan and a good financial planner helps you put them in order. And so that's really what we want for you. So the way to get around 99 problems, prioritize. The prioritization gives you the ability to have some efficiencies. The efficiencies give you the ability to stop putting out fires all the time. And then you can actually be strategic. You can scale out, come out of the weeds, look at the business, think about the business, have an outside perspective, or bring in an outside perspective to look at the business differently. Because ultimately what you want, if you're a business owner, you want to run that business like you're the investor in the business. And so you have expectations. You don't want to be the person who's inside operating unless you have to. There are periods of time, especially in the startup periods, where you have to be the operator. And if something goes sideways, you have to step in and be the one who's doing the thing. Sometimes things are going well and then somebody leaves and you've got to put on your work boots. These things happen. So there are times where you have to be the operator, but for the most part, you want to always be in the position where you're able to see the business strategically as much as possible, understanding that you're going to have to dip in and operate, but you should be able to pull out and think. And I think that's very important. If you are not a business owner, then very much the same thing applies, except you can think about your own self as a business. And this is a great topic to end with, because sometimes because I have clients who aren't business owners, and sometimes I think the sentiment is that, oh, well, we're a little different because we're not business owners, so whatever. No. Like, you think about yourself and your life and your paycheck and your career as an enterprise. Think of yourself as a business. And I've always said that I treat all of my clients, whether they're a business owner or not, as if they are a business, because really you are. Everybody is its own little micro business. You just might have a W-2 or a 1099 that somebody else pays you to provide a service to them. That's fine. You're still a business, because think of it that way. You're providing a service, you're getting a paycheck. That's kind of like a business. You're going to pay taxes, you're going to have insurance, you're going to have employees, or you're going to have people on the payroll, children, right? So think about it that way. Like, you are a business. And so same thing applies to you if you're working for somebody else. There are periods of time where you have to just go in and do your job so that way you can perform and get paid and hopefully earn more money over time. But there are times where you need to pull back and you need to think strategically about where you're going with your life and your career and your finances. And that's what financial planning does. So it's the same thing whether you own a business or whether you work for somebody else. You are a business. We have to treat you like one. We have to plan for how that business will eventually grow, or your career will grow, right? We have to think about how the business will be, what kind of exit plan that's going to look like. We have to think about what kind of retirement plan on this side it looks like. It's all the same to me. The mechanics are a little bit different. The steps are a little bit different. One looks bigger than the other, whatever, but the end result is relatively the same. So having a plan in place helps you control the 99 problems. And if you have questions about your plan or how to even start a plan, one of the things you might do is very simply, by all means, you can Google this. You can go to AI tools and ask these questions. You can go to lifemoveswealth.com. There's a pretty good run through of exactly how we approach financial planning, how we see the world, which is a little different than a lot of planners. A lot of planners are very investment focused and investment first and very investment heavy. And we're very plan heavy because planning helps us do the things that drive investments. Without the money to invest, without the cash flow to contribute to your retirement accounts, without the control around your taxes to be able to put money into other savings vehicles, right? You have to have a plan before you can invest. And so planning is important and investing is important, but we need to plan first because the plan drives the ability to invest and invest well. So yeah, go to lifemoveswealth.com, send an email to info@lifemoveswealth.com, and I'd love to talk to you about that. So I hope that this has been a helpful episode. I know it's probably been a little scattered. I'm running on about half of the coffee that I normally run on at this point in the day. And these things are important because things keep coming up in my life, and I'm sure they come up in your life. And let's make a plan. Let's get it done. And so that's episode 99. Episode 100 is coming up. I'm excited about it. We've got something different planned. It's going to be kind of fun, I hope. And I hope that you stick around for that episode. But until next time, take care of yourself. Go be a boss. Be awesome. See ya. Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more about your financial purpose, visit lifemoveswealth.com.